Welcome to the Breech Birth podcast. I'm Sasha Hopkins, private midwife, breech birth educator, and your host. This is a space to hear the real, raw, and powerful stories of women who have experienced breech birth in all its layers. Each episode features honest conversations with women who've experienced breech firsthand, offering insight and reflection. This podcast was born from the knowing that these stories need to be heard to inform, connect, and reclaim the story of breech birth. Whether you're navigating breech birth yourself, supporting others, or simply curious, welcome and thank you.
Hi, Gemma. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sasha. Thanks for having me.
So before you start, now you've had 4 babies and 3
Yep.
breech babies.
I have.
Where were you located for each of them for birth?
Yes. So Ryder, my teenage boy, I was living on the Northern Beaches in Sydney all those years ago. And then my 3 recent children, we live up on the mid-north coast. So they were all born around here in New South Wales.
And what years were they born?
So 2011,
Yep.
2019, 2022, and then 2024.
So 2019 was our head down baby.
Yes.
Yeah. And how many weeks were you with each of your breech babies?
So my first baby, I was 40 plus 5 days. My second baby, I was 39 weeks. And then my third was 42 weeks. And then my most recent, I was 40 and 3 days.
And what kind of care did you receive for each of your breech pups in pregnancy?
Yes, so I received for my first pregnancy just hospital care. It was a midwifery group practice, actually. It was a wonderful care model. The third baby, midwifery-led care. Up until the end, it was kind of the obstetricians then took over. And then my most recent was a private birth worker I sought out for some.
As in a midwife, doula?
She was not a midwife. She was a birth worker.
Yeah. Just for clarification to make it clear for listening. And did you have vaginal or caesarean for your breech babies?
My first, I had a vaginal breech delivery, and my third was a C-section delivery, and my fourth was a vaginal breech delivery. Yeah.
Amazing. So before you jump into all your amazing stories, would you like to give us a little snapshot about yourself?
Sure. I am a stay-at-home mum. I have 2 little ones at home with me. I also homeschool my teenage son, which is awesome. We've started that at the end of this year. And we live on the mid-north coast. We live on 6 acres right by the beach. So we're busy with a kind of a hobby farm. This last year, we've had the property about a year now. So we've got lots of animals and, fruit forests, and we're pretty busy doing all that.
Amazing.
My husband's an amazing, hardworking man. So he supports us financially so I can be at home with the babies. And yeah, I
Beautiful.
love everything natural health, and I love herbalism, and we keep a pretty healthy lifestyle. So yeah, we're lucky.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So let's start from the start. So your son was born 2011. You had him at 45. You had MGP care. Do you want to start from the beginning of the pregnancy? What was that like for you?
Sure. So I was quite young when I fell pregnant with Ryder. His dad and I had been in a relationship, a long-term relationship, 3 or so years. It was an unexpected pregnancy, but a very welcomed one. I was about 19 when I fell pregnant, and then was 20 not soon after him being born. Yeah, I guess it was a very straightforward pregnancy. I had the morning sickness, gosh, for a good 12 weeks. I was working and living out of home. So I had to get up each morning and open up the cafe. I managed a local cafe. So that was early starts, long days on my feet. I'd snack, and I wanted to keep it private for as long as I could. So I didn't tell anyone. So that was a bit tricky, feeling so nauseous and, a few spews through the day at work. But, kind of hit the 12-week mark and, came good, and I loved the end of that pregnancy. Worked right up until the end. So I had a lot of support from friends and family. Yeah, my partner at the time, his family were just beautiful. They did a lot for me at that time, for both of us really, because we were both very young at the time. We kind of got to the end of that pregnancy, and I had a beautiful team of midwives at the local hospital. They really took care of me, and being so young and, impressionable, I suppose, I just kind of did what I was told and went along with whatever they recommended for me. So I feel really thankful I have such a beautiful team of midwives. Yeah, I got along with my pregnancy. I probably hit about 40 weeks and I came down with quite a bad case of food poisoning. So long ago, but I do remember that. So it was a couple of days of feeling quite sick, and then I came good. Um, and yeah, I went into labour with my eldest boy.
Before you jump into labour, at what point did you know baby was breech, or did you not know?
We didn't know. We didn't know at
Ah,
all.
okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
we didn't know. It's funny though, looking back at photos, because I was so tiny and obviously young and I had never had a baby, I had quite a tight, small bump. And I do remember always feeling quite uncomfortable near my ribs and the shape of my belly. I don't know how they didn't pick it up. I always wonder whether she knew but didn't want to, make it a big deal. She was a beautiful midwife. I'm grateful actually that they didn't pick up on it, because it could have been a totally different experience. But we never knew he was breech. But to look back on now, it's very obvious to me, having consecutive breaches now. There's a big lump kind of sitting under my ribs, and it would kind of lose breath. But I just put it down to pregnancy symptoms. So we actually had stayed up and watched a really terrifying movie. So I always think maybe that's what put me into labour, because it was really like the whole time. It was 3:00 the next morning. Labour kicked off, and it was just crampy, and never gone into labour before. I didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, I laboured at home. My partner went off to work at, 8:00. He started early. I laboured at home still. It wasn't soon after he left that I rang him and said, "Oh, you'd better come home." It ramped up quite quickly. We weren't far from the hospital, but labour just continued. We lived in a one-bedroom flat, so there wasn't a lot of room to walk around. But I just got in and out of the shower. Hot water and stuff seemed to help me through that. And it really ramped up. He got home and I basically said, "Call the midwife." I had in my head, this is really, really painful, but I thought, I've got ages, it's going to get much worse. But it kind of hit the point where I went, this is really bad. I think we need to go. So we rang the midwife. She was, pretty cruisy, like, "Don't rush in. You've probably got ages." Being a first time mum, she probably thought, she's got ages. Anyway, I got to the point where I just couldn't handle it. So Dustin, my partner, Ryder's dad, started the car. We had to walk down lots of stairs and then a big driveway to get down to the car. And I basically got to the bottom of the stairs and I couldn't move. I was like, huge contractions rolling in. I was in agony. To get me in the car was a hard job. We got in, started heading to the hospital, and we were behind a garbage truck, kind of stopping every so often to empty the bins. So that was an interesting trip.
That's the worst.
Yeah, so it was the worst. Yeah, I remember that vividly. But we got to the hospital, pulled in. I was just a mess by that point. I was a fair way along. Anyway, we parked in the emergency thing. I opened the car door, went to get out, and my waters just went, like the movies. I thought, oh my God, thinking, wow, that actually happens. Got out, went all through the car. I've just gone, leave Dustin, started hobbling through to the hospital, but I've gone through where the women are sitting for their maternity appointments. So they're all relaxed and I'm walking through covered in, my waters are just broken. So I walked through and I've just in obviously quite noisy with my contractions, and waddled through and, spotted my midwife, and she's kind of ushered me through I had a huge contraction. I basically said, "Where's the toilet? I need to go to the toilet," thinking, I needed to do a poo. So she's just looked at me and gone, "Oh," obviously seen how far along I was. And I've gone into the toilet there and I just had the biggest urge to start pushing. But then I'd screamed out, I think it's the baby. So they've got me out of there, trying to find a birthing suite for me to go into. I've gone in and it's a bit kind of hazy from here, but somehow I guess they wanted to check how far along I was. So they've, got me up onto a bed, spread the legs, gone in to check. And I'm pretty sure it was my midwife or one of the teams of midwives. And they pretty soon realised that, it's not a head there. Baby was right there. they felt feet. So that turned what I believe, I was progressing beautifully. I was really, at that last stage of labor, ready to push. And then, it was just, from what I remember, it was just like a swarm of people, and it just turned into this huge emergency. It was just like, because they're the low risk hospital, they don't have breech babies born there, from what I know, obstetricians, just a swarm of people basically came into that space, and all I could really register was I was being sent up for a caesarean section. And by that point, I was in labour land. I was out of it. I was in absolute agony because I'm at that point of, just before transition of wanting to push the baby out. And then all of a sudden it's this. But my midwife and another couple of midwives, there was a bit of an argument going on in the room and all I remember vividly was my midwife's voice saying, she can do it, the baby's here, let her try, because he must have been so close to being born. Anyway, so by that point, I'm in agony. They've brought over a bit of gas. My partner's there just like, obviously very confused. I was confused because at one point they're saying they're going to take me up and put me to sleep. Yeah, a bit of it's blurry. But anyway, so then all of a sudden I'm wheeled back into the birth suite. Legs are up in stirrups, all pretty awful. And I just remember wanting to get up on my feet. I vividly remember just being really confused why they wouldn't let me get off the bed and get on my feet, because that's what I was being, my body was just that I had to do that. I had to get up and I had to get on my feet. But I guess being so young and so I'd never gone through this, I just did what I was told. So there were a swarm of people in the room, 10 plus people, and my legs were in the stirrups, locked in these stirrups. Body was, because I kept trying to get off the bed, but they were just kept pushing me back on and, basically stay where you are. This is where you're going to stay. This is how it's happening. So I just gave in to that and just started pushing him out, which was pretty awful just in the position that I was in. It didn't feel right. So yeah, Ryder was born in 20 minutes, so it was pretty fast. I was given an episiotomy, which I don't think was asked. It just was done, and back then that's just what had to happen to get him out. So yeah, we went through all that. Episiotomy was done. He was born. He was whisked away, I guess, to the side of the room. And I was just kind of laying there like, what the hell's just happened? Just because there were so many people in the room. And it was felt like a real emergency. But then hearing him cry and then bringing him over to me and putting him on my chest was really beautiful. And as soon as he was on me, we just relaxed into each other and it was really beautiful. And that was that. And they stitched my episiotomy up. He latched on my boob beautifully. So, yeah.
And how long did you breastfeed him for?
I was lucky with Ryder. He latched straight away and I fed him for about a year. I went back to work, so I would have liked to have fed him longer. And then we actually moved up the coast when Ryder was about 3 months old. So we got out of Sydney and did the move up 5 hours up the coast to a beautiful little town.
And what was your healing journey like, and particularly having a episiotomy? How?
I feel quite lucky with the recovery on that. I think it was about a week that it felt pretty horrible. But I guess I had nothing to compare it to. So I just was like, this is having a baby. This is what it feels like. I guess the shock of him being Breech. I'd never even known about Breech, or it was never on my radar. I guess being so young and so, what's the word, naive, I suppose, about birth. But yeah, I felt grateful, I guess, that it didn't end up in a caesarean section as time went on. The more I researched it, I felt lucky that he came out the way that he came out. I felt sad that it was turned into such an emergency, but I guess, that's just the way it was meant to be. But yeah.
It would have been very intense listening.
Yeah.
Like listening to the conversations whilst trying to be in labour.
Yeah.
That would have been very intense experience.
It felt right for me. It felt like everything was progressing and it just, I guess, your instincts are taking over, your body's doing its thing. To then be told like how your feeling's wrong was very confusing. Yeah, at that time. But I guess, yeah, I didn't really process it till years later, to be honest. But yeah, postpartum was great. We breastfed beautifully. I guess we moved at 3 months old. He was so young, so that kept us really busy. He just was so happy with the move up here, and I met some beautiful people because obviously being so young, my girlfriends at the time weren't having kids. So I met a lot of beautiful mums up here that were a little bit older than me that were having babies. So that was really, yeah, that was just the best postpartum for me. We connected each day. There was a beautiful friend of mine. We're still really good friends years later.
And so
Yeah.
then your second baby was a head down baby. Do you want to just give a
Yes.
snapshot of what kind of birth you had and the care you received?
Yes, sure. So I fell pregnant. The age gap's 8 years. So my son's father and I split up when he was about 3. He moved back to Sydney. I met my now husband, and we fell pregnant with our first baby, well, Grant's first baby, my second baby, pretty quickly and easily. Yeah, there was no doubt in my mind I'd go through hospital care again. Our local hospital had a great midwifery care, very similar to what I had with Ryder. That was great, very straightforward pregnancy. It was probably my easiest and, yeah, best, I guess, in terms of I'd already been pregnant. I'd been through that. I did a lot of healing through that pregnancy because of a bit of the trauma, obviously, with Ryder. Yeah, I did a lot of pregnancy yoga and stuff like that, and just a lot of meditation, and really got in the zone with that pregnancy. But yeah, my birth was straightforward. My waters had broken actually the day before, but I wasn't worried. By that point I'd done a bit of research, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to let the hospital know that. I'll just keep an eye on how I'm feeling, and it can turn into a bit of a drama when it doesn't have to be. And I went into labour kind of 24 hours after my waters had broken anyway. And it was a beautiful labour at home. Basically did my thing, got in the car when I was, had progressed a lot. Lenny was born in the pool at the hospital, and we were left to our own devices, which was awesome. It was just my husband and I in the room. I was in the pool. I had that fetal ejection reflex with Lenny, which was awesome. I'd heard about that. So he just kind of flew out of, it was easy, and yeah, he was great. But he was born at 39 weeks, and he was actually born, we'd never picked up on it, but he was born quite small. So he was born at 2.5 kilos, even though he was full term. So that was kind of a mystery for that. But yeah, great postpartum. He breastfed a couple of days on express breast milk with a syringe just because he was so little. But I never needed any extra care. We went home. I had a great postpartum. We were building a house actually at the time. So that was a little bit, busy and a bit stressful, and just having a new baby at home. And it had been so long since I'd had a newborn. So I guess there was a lot of relearning and just different things. But yeah, my eldest had started primary school by that point. So we got a lot of one-on-one time with me and my second. Yeah. But yeah, it was very straightforward. No issues.
Yeah, great. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
And so then your third baby ended up being
Yeah.
Breech. And what's the age gap between number 2 and 3?
So the age gap between number 2 and 3 is 3.5 years.
What did that pregnancy look like? Was it planned? How was your journey there, and what care did you receive?
Yeah, so it was very planned. We actually had a lot of trouble falling pregnant the third time around. A year went by and we hadn't fallen pregnant, and another 6 months went by, and it was a bit of a stressful time, to be honest. We did a lot of lifestyle changes and kind of tried to lower our stress, things like that. I got my body really healthy. We actually had a miscarriage before Matilda, so that was sad. So we had a bit of a healing time after that, and then we fell pregnant with her, which was just awesome. When it takes longer than what you think, it's a really stressful time, because we knew we wanted more kids, and yeah, so that was awesome. My pregnancy with her was really hard, I found. My sickness was probably the worst it had ever been. A lot more throwing up. With the boys, it was more nausea, but with Matilda, it was a lot of throwing up, and kind of found it hard to keep food down. Yeah, so that was really tricky, and it kind of went on for about 22 weeks, I feel, the sickness. And I guess having more kids to look after it as well, you have less rest time. By that point, I'd stopped working, which was great. Working in hospitality is not easy when you're feeling so sick. So I got into a bit of study then too. So that was a nice time. Yeah, Lenny was about 2 at the time. So he being a busy boy, it was not a lot of rest. But we had a lot of family help, so that was nice. On the really bad days, I could ring, Grant's mum and dad or my mum if I just needed like an hour to have a sleep. So that was really helpful. And that pregnancy tracked along beautifully. I had the same plan. I'll go to the local hospital again, same midwifery care. So that kind of changed, I guess, the further along I got. They had clicked on that she was breech. I'm going to say edging towards 30 weeks, maybe 29 weeks. There's a few things that I wish I'd done differently, knowing now that a lot of the things that they offer you can decline. But at the same time, I just went along with it. And the further along I progressed, I did a lot of, I was seeing an acupuncture actually like a year before I'd fallen pregnant with my third baby. So I kept doing that through the pregnancy, which I found really beautiful. So we did a lot of moxibustion and I did a lot of spinning babies, and I actually kind of started obsessing over that to the point where it probably caused me a lot of stress towards the end. I just was determined that I wanted to have a vaginal birth. So there was no other way in my head, which was probably a bit detrimental just with how I felt at the end. But yeah, so that pregnancy progressed. She stayed breech. I was then referred up to a further hospital. So I wasn't allowed to birth at the local hospital at that point. So that was that. And it was a bit of a battle, to be honest, with the hospital. They don't allow breech vaginal births. So I had a lot of back and forth. I was very stubborn because I knew that my body could birth a breech baby and it didn't concern me in the slightest. And it was, in my eyes, a bit ridiculous for it to be seen as an emergency and to have such a serious surgery for something that, for me, I was like, well, I've done it before. It's my third baby. So yeah, it was a bit of a back and forth battle for a few weeks with the obstetricians. But they ended up in the end, because I guess I just wasn't going to give in. I said, well, I'm going to birth the baby how I want to, birth her. So they were like, all right, look, that's what you want to do. That's fine. So that was really nice. I had like 2 or 3 weeks of where I was left alone and I could really prep and get my head in the game. And I just listened to podcasts and did a lot of long beach walks and just really wanted to make sure that, because I had everyone against me. My husband was in my team, but, there was not one person that kind of was advocating for me at the time. And I ended up hitting about 40 weeks and I thought, you know what, I'm going to reach out to a home birth midwife, because by that point I hit the 40-week mark and then I kind of hit the 41-week mark, and that's when the phone call started and I don't want to say harassment, but there were a lot of people concerned with my decision to want to birth this baby breech. So that got to me in the end. And I ended up actually reaching out to a couple of, there was a home birth midwife actually in the area. And I thought, it's so late in the game. It's a breech baby. She's not going to be able to support me. But I guess I just wanted to reach out to someone for a bit of support, and maybe off the off chance that she might be able to be there for the birth. Because I started to think in my head, look, worst case, I'll just go into labour at home. We still had really nice care from the local midwives. They were still a part of it, but there's only so much they could do now that I had been referred up to that further hospital. The obstetricians kind of took over a bit. Yeah, so I just got further and further along. I think just all the stress in my body, she just wasn't going to come. She wasn't feeling safe to come. I wasn't feeling safe. And by that point, they said, look, we're going to refer you down to a hospital further south. They do heaps of breech babies. You'll be better off down there. You can have your vaginal breech birth. We'll ship you off down there. But by that point, I'm 41 weeks. I've got 2 kids at home. My husband runs his business up here. I couldn't just go down 4.5 hours to wait to go into labour to a hospital I'd never even walked into. I didn't have a relationship with anyone down there. My midwives were up here. So basically I would have been 42 weeks on the Monday, and we went up there on the Friday for another bedside check-in scan. And I kind of feel on the way to the hospital, I sobbed the whole way there because I felt like I knew what I was walking into by going there. Just at that point in my pregnancy, being so vulnerable, and what I thought happened, went in, put on the bedside scan. And the baby, she was happy as. They couldn't believe at that. I could believe she was happy. She was fine. But they couldn't believe that I was so far along. She's sitting breech and she's still happy. There was heaps of fluid, and so that was all good. But I just got bullied basically in that room, and I had nothing left in me by that point. I did start to feel. Started to second guess myself, I guess. And we'd tried for so long to fall pregnant with her, and I just thought, if anything happens because of what all these professionals are telling me, and I've gone against them, I just couldn't live with myself. But it was the hardest thing ever. So that day was really hard. We basically agreed to a C-section that afternoon. And I just kind of checked out mentally that whole day because I had to fast for a bit, and they had to prep me. Yeah, it was really hard. I'd never, ever considered a C-section. Like I had never prepped myself to ever experience that. And I just knew it's not what I wanted, really. But anyway, that's how it happened. And it was a Friday and we were booked in that afternoon, basically. I guess because that's what worked for the obstetricians. And I guess, crumbled and went, well, I don't want to put them out, which is ridiculous now to think. But I've gone this long. I'm nearly 42 weeks. I was sick of fighting people. I was like, oh, no one's in my corner. Let's just do it. She had also actually planted in my head that my placenta was looking a little bit calcified, which is not something I'd done so much research, but it's not something I'd really done a lot of research on, was that comment. So that kind of is what pushed me over the edge a bit, to be honest. I was still on the fence, but this what made me go, shit, all right, we better do it. We better do this. So that was a little bit disappointing just with what I know now.
Yeah. Did you have any preferences for the cesarean? Because obviously you hadn't thought about it. Was there anything in that moment that you were like, okay, well, if I do this, this is how I want it to look?
No, which makes me sad. It makes me kind of want to go back to Gemma in that day and go, come on, snap out of it. This is what's happening. But I kind of just disassociated completely from that moment. It was it's such a weird feeling. It was quite sad because I'd spent a lot of time afterwards kicking myself, not requesting things at that point. But I guess I just had the shits and I just went, well, it's happening. No, I don't want it to be happening. So no, I just went along with the day with whatever people were telling me that I had to do. I had the cannula put in actually soon after, and I just remember they obviously had sent in someone that was in training. So I was laying there, like I sobbed the whole day. I don't think there was a moment that I wasn't crying. I felt sorry for like the people training and the midwives and stuff training coming and going. They just must have thought, oh my God, that poor girl. I just was a mess. I was an absolute mess. And I had this person trying to put the cannula in my arm who kept missing the vein. It was about 6 or 7 times. And I just looked at this person and went, can you please get someone else? Can you please, not only am I doing this thing I don't want to do, can you at least get the first go of the vein?
Do a good job.
Do your job.
Yeah.
Or piss off and let someone else do it. Yeah, I was not a happy girl.
Yeah. And so what did that cesarean look like for you? What do you remember from that? Did you get skin to skin whilst in there?
Yeah, so it was about 2:00, I think, from memory. Got wheeled down. In saying that, I had a really cool, a nice anaesthetist, another beautiful midwife that actually was the one that held my hand the whole way. We'd never met, but we just gelled. Out of that whole experience, she's someone that I'll remember. She was just really sympathetic. She held my hand like from start to finish. Every time I'd have a big sob, she'd just squeeze my hand. And it's like every moment I needed that, she just did it. So that was really, really awesome. Yeah, it was beautiful. And I still remember her face. She just was such a lovely woman. So we got wheeled down. My husband was there. He was all prepped and ready to go. It kind of felt like it was like an out of body experience. It was bizarre. And, she's still kicking around in my belly, moving around, kicking around. And so I just had my hand on her the whole time through there. And I guess you get wheeled into where you get the spinal tap. And still, I was just so disassociated from what was happening. I guess it was almost like I was going in to get like a filling. It didn't feel real. I just completely had checked out. Yeah, so got through, did the spinal tap. That took a bit of time. I guess they're prepping and I just felt like a zombie. I was just sitting there like, waiting to get a filling. Checked out completely. I think by that point I had stopped even like holding my belly to feel the baby move. I was just like numb. Anyway, they've done the spinal tap. So they lay you back, and Grant was there. And I think that's when it all hit me. And I just lost it. I grabbed his face and I was like, just hysterical. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Yeah, and I was just really sad. And I think by that point, obviously everything goes numb. So I just flipped. I was like, oh my gosh. And I got really scared. Yeah, I guess I felt really scared. And then honestly, within it felt like seconds. They obviously are doing it while I'm having my meltdown. They're doing the cutting and it's so fast. I obviously was snapped out of that because they've pulled her out. And because after having two boys, I was really wanting a girl. Like I just was really, really wanting a girl. So they basically lifted her out. And, that snapped me out of that. And Gran and I looked up and obviously we've seen that she's a girl and it was just incredible. It really snapped me out of all that. It was like an instant gone from feeling so miserable and sad to this is like the best moment of my life. I'm meeting my baby. This has just happened. And, she was a girl. And that was amazing. Yeah, that was really cool.
Beautiful. And did she come round to you for skin to skin?
No. So this is, I guess, being so drugged up from all the stuff they give you. I had that beautiful moment and there's a lot I don't remember from these few minutes, but they've taken her over and they've cut the cord way too early, taken her over. She's screaming, like she screamed straight away. So there was no issues or worry there. Yeah, he got to go over and cut what was left of her cord, which what it is. But I guess in those moments, I didn't really, if I'm going to be honest, I didn't really feel worried. I knew Grant was there and I was still feeling really flood of different emotions. But they've brought her over pretty soon, and we've got some beautiful photos. She was just curled up around me for a while, I guess, while they stitch you up and they do all those things. So we had those beautiful moments, and then I was really affected by the drugs of the surgery. I just felt sick. Like I don't think I've ever felt more sick. I had to actually tell Grant to get her off me. It felt too much. I was just flooded with wanting to throw up, didn't know what the hell was going on. Yeah, it was a really awful feeling for a while. Basically being wheeled up to, I guess, recovery. There's a lot of bits that I remember and then I don't remember, but I just remember needing her off me and just feeling really sick. Like, yeah, it's hard to explain, but it wasn't a nice feeling.
Yeah, your head's down lower than your bottom, so it can feel heaviness as well.
Yeah,
So it is common. Yeah.
I'm quite a fainter, so I felt really like my blood sugars, everything just felt off. And I felt really hot. So yeah, that was pretty horrible. But you got up to recovery.
Did she go with you to recovery?
She did.
Okay. Did she breastfeed in there?
We did. Yeah, she latched on straight away. That was amazing. So I felt really sick, really, really sick. And then it came around to dinner time and they brought me in some food. And I thought, oh, great. Maybe I'm just hungry. I can't even remember what I ate. I can't imagine it would have been any good being hospital food. But I scoffed all the food. And then within 5 minutes, my husband was still there. I think he must have been holding Matilda by that point, but I've just thrown up for about 5 minutes. I just threw up and threw up and threw up. And, when you've just got fresh caesarean stitches, yeah, that was really scary for me. I just thought I was dying. The midwives came in because I was just like, what's this feeling? And then, yes, after that, I felt better getting all that food out. I don't think I should have eaten the food. I guess with all the drugs still circulating in your system.
Usually they get you to just eat light before you dive into a meal.
Yeah, yes, I wasn't told that. So I felt a bit rough after that and I didn't sleep that night. Grant had to leave. Obviously, we had Lenny at home and Ryder, and Lenny was only still little at the time. So he went home to him. So I was there with Matilda and yeah, we didn't sleep that night. I had her in the bed, much to some of the midwives' horror. She was next to me, on me. I wasn't putting her in that little crib. But yeah, it kind of hit early hours of the morning and I really, really needed to sleep. And I had a beautiful midwife that was on shift. She was lovely. Matilda became quite unsettled at that point. And I actually think back and I think, I can't believe I would never normally do that. But I think I knew I needed sleep. So she actually took her for me for, I think it was nearly 2 hours as soon as she took her, and I must have felt that she was really safe with her, I suppose. I just was out cold. So I got a good couple of hours sleep. So I woke up feeling much better. I guess the drugs had worn off and I was like, and then she was brought in not long after.
You do wake up in a jolt, like, where's my baby?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, it was, and then obviously the pains kicking in. Yeah. A C-section the recovery is just next level. I found that really hard.
How long were you in the hospital for after your cesarean?
So I was in hospital for 3 or 4 nights, and she was born 22. So it was still kind of on the back of all the COVID stuff. So my mum brought the boys up to meet her. And technically they actually weren't allowed in to the birthing ward, but luckily we had a couple of nice midwives on and they snuck because I was ready to carry the baby out and go and meet them down at the cafeteria. And I still couldn't really move. So she was really nice. She snuck them in so they could meet their little sister.
So you went home, and how was that transition post-cesarean with 2 little ones at home? How did you go?
It was pretty terrible, to be honest. I was not in a good headspace. I guess processing what had happened and feeling so awful. It's hard to move around, obviously, with just having a C-section. So I felt really useless, like not useless. I just felt really hopeless. I wasn't really in a good space mentally. I was so happy. Obviously, I'd got the girl and the kids, it was just such a perfect situation. I just couldn't process what had happened. And that took me a long time, really. Yeah, I still think about it. And it's better now and easier, but yeah, it took me a long time to not feel sad. But recovery was pretty horrible. I feel like a couple of weeks and I was heaps better. The first few nights at home, I guess you're going from those hard hospital beds, you can buzz them up and down and back to your soft, comfy bed at home. I just remember the first 3 nights I'd have to roll over and my husband would have to lift me out of the bed because I just couldn't lift my body up. It felt like I'd been hit by a truck. That's what I envisioned. I said, this is what it probably feels like if you've been hit by a truck. It was awful. And I felt very sorry for myself. But I had lots of help. My mum came round, she did some dinners and I'd had some meals made in the freezer from some friends. Yeah, so that all that side of stuff was really great. I had lots of visitors, which was great. I really, really wanted visitors that time round. But yeah, took me a long while to mentally be okay.
Yeah. Did you do any work for yourself? You said you did a bit of healing in your second pregnancy from your first. Did you do anything postpartum with this one, or was it not till the next pregnancy that you looked at it?
It probably wasn't till the next pregnancy. I kind of just got on with it. I kind of got into a bit of a dark hole, I guess, the month after I was researching all the things on C-sections and their gut microbiome. I really did my head in. I had to step away and go, this is what happened. This is what she chose, whether I truly believe that or not. I had to get over it. I had to move on. It wasn't going to be good for me to continually feel sad.
I think that's really important, is that acceptance. When something negative in our life experience happens, when we focus on the story of it, it only leads us to feel bad. Whereas if we can obviously we have those emotions, they're important to feel and move through that because it is a grief. Moving through the grief and you go through the stages of grief. But at the end of the day, for you to truly heal and move forward, there has to be acceptance at some point. So when we can accept what's happened, we can then move forward.
Yeah, I'd actually had in our spare room like a birthing board that I was going to have through my labour. So I couldn't look at that for ages. I'd spent a lot of time putting pictures and beautiful words of affirmation. And it took me a long time. I actually hid that for probably 6 months before I pulled that out. And it was really nice to be able to pull that out, I guess, after a bit of time and like touch it and, and feel okay with how things turned out and just accepting that I did what was best at the time with the information and the support that I had.
Yeah.
And, and time does heal. And just honestly, looking at her every day and just how happy and beautiful and healthy and, looking at her was such a healing thing. every day that I'd spend with her and watching her grow just made everything better, really. So that was nice. Yeah.
That is nice. Awesome. All right. So let's jump into your final and most recent birth. And this one was also Breech.
Yeah.
What's the age gap between the third number 4?
So they're 20 months. And I guess there was so much time that it took to fall pregnant with our third. We were really relaxed. And I honestly, in my head, didn't think I was that fertile. I thought, I had Ryder so young. I had the C-section. Even though this is all nonsense, I just thought, I just don't think I'm fertile anymore. And we were definitely a bit cruisy about that. And I'm one of those people, I don't get my cycles back till I finish breastfeeding. So I felt really safe in that. So we were a bit complacent, I suppose. And Matilda, she was a beautiful feeder. We still fed through the day. She started sleeping through the night for about 6 weeks. So then without those night feeds, my cycles returned. So I had what I thought was just a random bleed. We just went about our time and probably weren't as careful as I guess people are if they don't want any more kids. But we fell pregnant with Eddie. Yeah, very, very lucky. But I was waiting for that next cycle. I thought, oh, that's weird. I guess it's maybe late, but maybe just because they've only just come back. It's not anything. So I left it. I was back at the gym regularly, feeling amazing. Matilda was sleeping through the night. Life felt really easy at that time. I'd started studying again, just part-time, when she would have a nap. And then I thought, oh, I'll just do a test. I thought there was something, obviously your intuition, there was something, I think I'd had a dream, which is what happened when I fell pregnant with Lenny, but I'd had a dream that I was pregnant. Anyway, so a few days went by and I thought, no, I'll just get a test just to see. Anyway, literally within seconds, it was like 2 lines. Holy shit, But yeah, it was just excitement. I was utterly shocked. I thought, there's no way. We tried for 2 years with her, and anyone that has been trying for a baby for such a long time knows, how hard that is each month when it hasn't happened. I just thought, what are the odds? I think we'd had sex once in that time frame too. So it was just a shock. I didn't think I could fall pregnant, let alone that easy. So yeah, I didn't tell Gran, I think, till the next day because I felt really, it was like this secret and it just felt really cool that it was just me that knew. And I guess I just had to get my head around life with another baby because I'd had such big gaps. I just had never thought that I'd have a close gap like that. But yeah, told Grant, he was just like, whoa, obviously shocked too, but it didn't take us long to be stoked that it happened so fast. So yeah, but then also having 2 kids at home, or 3 kids, one a bit older, but 2 little ones at home. And I just was like, oh my God, waiting for this sickness to start. And it was about a week after we'd found out that the nausea just crept on in. And yeah, each day that went on, it just kind of got worse and worse. But I kind of had to snap myself out of it every day. Like I had to still get up. Matilda, she just had turned 1 and, a few months. I had to snap myself out of it. So I don't know. I guess that was helpful. I couldn't cave and give in to the sickness. I was very proactive though. I'd done a lot of research by then with supplements. So I was taking magnesium. I was making sure I was eating first thing, a lot of protein. I'd boil up a lot of eggs actually. And I found snacking on boiled eggs would bring me out of that wanting to spew. And I got onto these great Hydrolyte drinks. So I was staying hydrated, making sure I was fed, still felt sick, but I just kept myself busy, I guess, with the kids. And yeah, the pregnancy progressed. I went back to the gym pretty soon. I wanted to continue doing that because I'd really got into my fitness and things like that. And I wanted to stay quite fit through this pregnancy. I hadn't done that with Matilda, which I feel like was a bit of a detriment to how things worked out. Obviously, very soon on, the more research I'd done, having 2 breeches, I was very prepared and had in my head that this baby will also be a breech. Now, actually backtracking, when I did have the C-section with Matilda, the obstetrician that did the caesarean did mention I had a slight lip in my womb. It wasn't a bicornuate, is it?
Biconduit?
A conduit, but it was a slight dip in there. So
Okay.
potentially why the babies are breech.
Slight love heart shape.
Yeah, that's right. So very early on, and after Matilda, I guess, was born, delved right into the home birth world, and I was really into it. I kind of had started on the back end of her pregnancy, but then once she was born, I was deep diving into birth and all these different things. So when I fell pregnant with Eddie, I was very much aware of things more than what I was. So I didn't interact at all with the hospital. That was something that I knew 100% wouldn't be the journey through this pregnancy. And I guess 4 babies along, I'd kind of done all the different things. I just wanted something
You've
different
tried
this time.
everything.
Yeah, basically. So, but I got in touch with some beautiful doulas in the area and just started scoping out who I would get to support me through this. Because I did still want support. I didn't want to go at it myself. Just knowing that I was potentially going to have another breach, I did want that support for that. And I have 3 children as well. I just wanted to be really prepared. But I also didn't want to interact with the hospital. So I had a lot of time to reach out to different people and get a scope of what I wanted to do. I did get a 12-week scan just to kind of track how I was progressing and how Bub was. And that was all really nice. And it was nice to see a baby on the screen, all the sickness. You kind of want to know for sure that they're okay. Yeah, you're not feeling like this for no reason. And then I scoped out a beautiful woman. She was actually recommended through another well-known doula in the area. So I got in contact with her early on and she was just amazing, clicked. And I was really early on by then. So it was basically like, yeah, pencil in around the due date. She was available. We'll touch base again when you're a bit further along. Yeah, so that was awesome. So the pregnancy tracked beautifully.
So you're choosing to free birth and
Yes.
you'd had 1 ultrasound. Did you have any blood tests or anything?
I did actually. I did at the start, just to get all my levels checked because I was still breastfeeding Matilda as well. So yeah, I'm a bit of a low iron girl, so I got pretty proactive with that. My breast milk actually dried up. I think I would have been about 16 weeks along. We kept dry feeding for probably a month. But I was really sad at the time because I wasn't ready to stop breastfeeding Matilda, but that's just what happened, and the milk just wasn't coming back, and she was kind of frustrated in the end, so she had stopped. She didn't want to dry feed anymore, so that was fine.
And so at any point in this pregnancy, did you believe baby was breech or no baby was breech?
So not really. So this pregnancy, actually, I met this beautiful chiropractor and she also does kinesiology. So we did a lot of chiropractic work throughout that pregnancy, which was just beautiful. Like, I guess holding a toddler, and I was still going to the gym and obviously growing a baby, my body just really needed it. And the fact she had the kinesiology side as well, we built quite a nice friendship. And I did inform her of the breech stuff, and she did a lot of work towards the end on making space in the hips.
And so tell me about the birth, the labour. How did it start?
Yes. So I got to 40 weeks and was feeling amazing. Was still doing exercise and running after Matilda and obviously busy with the other 2 kids. So by the end of each day, I was exhausted. I'd even said to my husband, gosh, I hope, whenever I go into labour, please not let it be when I'm just about to climb into bed because I need to have a good sleep. So that was, yeah, that was quite funny. Hit 40 weeks and my low waters had started to trickle for a couple of days. I was keeping an eye on that, the colour and obviously how I was feeling, and I wasn't concerned at all with that. So I was wearing maternity undies for a couple of days with the waters trickling throughout the day. So we just hung at home. My husband was working locally, so that was fine. So I guess 40 plus 3 days. We'd had a big day. We'd had dinner at mum's that night, come home. I was feeling exhausted, kind of went to climb into bed. Grant's fallen asleep instantly. The kids are all asleep. It's probably 8:30 and I've jumped into bed and I just laid there and I just thought, God, I just cannot go to sleep, tossed and turned. I thought, shit, I just cannot sleep. I just felt really wired. I was exhausted, but I thought, why? I just need to go to sleep. I was so fixated on needing to go to sleep. And I went on, it felt like hours. So I got up and I thought, shit, I'm going to check what the time is because we got into bed at 8:30. I checked the time. It was 11 p.m. I thought, oh my God, why aren't I asleep yet? Anyway, sure enough, contractions started. And I thought, oh my gosh, no, not now, please. I'm going to get into bed. Let's just wait till the morning, please, baby. Like, don't come now. I'm too tired. I can't. Anyway, I tried to get back into bed and it wasn't happening. They were coming in pretty hard and fast, pretty quickly. So we had set up my bedroom with everything, all my crystals and my lights and all the things I'd had prepared. So I've basically woken my husband up to go into the spare room because I thought, oh, I'll get him out of the room, let him sleep a bit more. Kids are all asleep. So I've got him up. He's like, oh, no, it's all good. You just go have a sleep. I'll wake you up when it's, further along. So that just kicked off and laboured. It was, hard and fast pretty quickly. It got to about midnight and I messaged my my birth support, just letting her know what was happening. At that point, went and woke my husband up because I thought this is progressing pretty fast, and a little bit of fears crept in, I suppose. All the things, but that was fine. Once he was back in the room with me, I felt a lot better. Just in that quick moment of feeling like I was alone, and it was so dark, and I was also cautious of. I wasn't sure whether I wanted the kids there or not, but I didn't want them waking up. So Grant was back in. My birth support knew what was happening. Things really ramped up. I was back and forth to the bathroom, back and forth in the shower. Then I'd come back out and then I'd go back into the shower. The water for me was just heavenly. That was really nice. But that went on for quite a while, and contractions were really strong. Basically straight away when they'd come in, and I was standing the whole time. Yeah, so I a lot of squatting, a lot of over the yoga ball, and so that was exhausting, I guess, being on your legs for so long. But it was progressing beautifully. The lights were dark. We had the candles going. And my beautiful birth support turned up. She just kind of crept in the room. Just knowing she was there was really nice. And so that just progressed on and on. And there was a moment hanging over the birth ball, Grant's rubbing my back. I just knew my body had to stand up and I was hunched over. So I guess that's just the position I had to be in. So I really was feeling into that and my intuition on what position I had to be in, which felt the most comfortable. So then I've gone from the bedroom back into the shower, and I knew in that point he was close. So I've gone in just under the hot shower, and I've just had this huge urge to start pushing. So my husband actually was still in the room because I kind of snuck off a little bit, and then so they'd come in a couple of minutes later, and then I was pushing, and he was coming out. So that was all happened quite fast.
You were in the shower pushing, did you say?
Yeah. So I was in the shower pushing. Standing up, and then there was a huge push and I was hunched over, and what I felt come out was one of his legs. So it was like a big drop, and it was his foot and then his leg. And then minutes later, I just was feeling into my body, and also very aware with breech babies, you just have to push. You don't wait for a next contraction. Well, not always.
That's right, because you've got cord compression, so you've got to be mindful of that.
Exactly.
So that's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was all happening pretty fast. I was just so in tune with what was going on in my head, what I was meant to be doing in that moment. But he came out beautifully. His foot and then his leg, and then he basically rotated, and it was quite funny because we didn't know what the gender was. So obviously then his balls and his little doodle comes out next. Obvious. Yeah, so I made sure I said to my husband, don't tell me, because you'll see obviously what gender it is before anything else. So that was quite funny. But he just rotated.
It was in labour that you realised baby was Breech, is that right?
Yes, it was. Yes,
like when you saw a foot?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's because there was more space from having the other babies, but I never had that real definite head under the ribs like I did with my first. And Matilda as well. She was a definite head in the ribs. I never really had that with Eddie. So that was interesting. So he came out pretty fast after that. Yeah.
And cried straight away? Yeah.
Yeah. So
amazing.
That was all in the shower. And
did you move out of there pretty quick? And what was your placenta birth like?
Yes, he moved out of there. I had him on my chest. We hobbled back into the room. We had the heating going, so the house was all toasty and warm. This was at about 3:30 in the morning. We had all the stuff laid out on the bed, so we just laid there for a while. He attached straight away, so that was really nice. And he was just looking up at me, and we were just getting to know each other, I suppose, just figuring each other out. And it was nice having those moments in between the birthing of the placenta. And I guess having 4 kids, the afterbirth pains started ramping up a bit. So I was in a fair bit of pain. So it was nice to have those moments, though. And then we kind of hobbled back in. I had Eddie on my boob. He was feeding. I just sat on the toilet. It wasn't long after that we had the bowl ready to catch the placenta. And then, birthing that placenta was just like the best feeling ever. It felt more painful birthing the placenta than the baby, honestly. I'd never had pain like that. But birthing that placenta was just the best feeling, just to know that I'd done it and we were here, he was here, and having that out felt really nice. And we kept that attached for a few hours, which was really nice. I hadn't had that before, so that was quite special.
Yeah, in your own time.
Exactly, yeah. And I guess with the hours that went on, the kids woke up one by one, and having them come into the bedroom was just, we've got like lots of videos, and it was just the most beautiful, special moment of our lives, having that. Nothing will ever compare to that moment. Just having them all there and their little faces, like walking into mum and dad's room with a little baby there. It was priceless. It was such a special moment.
And how was your postpartum after that birth?
Amazing. Yeah, incredible, as it should be. It felt really healing. It was a really healing birth and pregnancy for me. I feel like that's why Eddie kind of came along how he did, for me to be able to experience that, and just, it felt really healing. And he's such a special little boy. Like, obviously all my kids are, but there's just something about Ed. Yeah, he's such a special guy. But it was beautiful. He breastfed, and Matilda settled in because she was still quite young and the age gap's quite close, but she has just been beautiful with him. And I had a lot of support, and I had lots of meals made for me in the lead up, so that was really helpful. Yeah, it was just easy. It just felt so easy. Yeah.
Are you still breastfeeding?
I am still breastfeeding. Yes, he's the booby man. He loves the boob. So I don't see us finishing anytime soon. We're in the middle of renovating our property, so he's in with us, which is lovely. But I feel like, because he's always next to me in the room, he's got free access to milk.
It's on tap. It's ready.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he loves it, and I love it, because he's probably going to be our last bub. So I'm trying to take in all these last moments, which makes me quite sad, really, but fall's good for us.
Yeah. Even numbers. Everyone's got a pair.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Makes sense.
Beautiful. So for women listening that have a breech baby on board, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to tell them right now?
Yes. I just feel like you need to trust your intuition and really have some quiet moments to work out why your baby is in that position. I believe babies get into the right position for themselves. They're really wise. And just to find people that are going to support you. Find your team, and your body's done nothing wrong. It's not the wrong way round, or that's how they're meant to be, and that's how they chose to be. So just trust that, I think. And trust your body, because, it's perfect.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Gemma, for sharing all your stories. It's been awesome to listen to.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's so great what you're doing. Bringing awareness to this space is really important. I wish I'd had a bit more of it earlier on. So thank you, Sasha.
Thank you for listening to the Breech Birth podcast. These stories matter. They stretch what we think we know and bring voice to experiences that need to be heard. I'm so grateful to the women who have shared their experiences with us, raw, real, and full of wisdom. If this episode resonated with you, please follow, share, or leave a review. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Breech Birth Podcast. And if you have a breech story to share, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, may we continue to reclaim the narrative, one story